the killing of the Middle East continues. The West and Israel are steadfastly upholding their wars on the Muslim world. Wars that seem to be expanding and could put the whole world in danger. So I say welcome to a new talk about Palestine in Snak om Palæstina. Today we'll be talking in English, as we have the honor of talking to the internationally well-known Israeli journalist and writer Gideon Levy, who is with us from Tel Aviv. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm going to jump right into it. I read that your grandparents, they were murdered during the Holocaust. So can you tell us a little bit about your background, your family, and when they came to Palestine?
So I was born in Tel Aviv. All my life I lived in Tel Aviv, never left Tel Aviv. My parents were refugees, very simple as this. My father came in 1939 on an illegal boat. He was half a year in the Mediterranean, detained in Beirut, Lebanon, until he came illegally to Palestine in 1939, leaving behind his parents, his fiancée, and everything he had. He had a PhD in law. He could never practice law, and I'm not sure he really found his place in Israel, Palestine, but this was his only rescue place. My mother was 16 years old in 1939, and she came with a special project of saving children to a kibbutz in the north, and then they met, and then I was born. A very much not political home, trying to struggle and to survive. Not many political ideas then, but really survival. My father never spoke with me about the past, and I wasn't interested. And now when I have so many questions, there's no one to ask anymore. And I was a very good boy, Tel Aviv, did everything that an average Israeli should do, believed in all the things that we were told, that we, the Jews, are always right, the Arabs are always wrong, they want to kill us, we want peace. All those things we got from early childhood until in my 20s, or very late 20s, I started to go to the occupied territories. And then I started to change my political views.
So were you in the army? Did you serve the army?
Yes, I was in the army radio station. I was a journalist in the army, right?
Okay. So you were not in combat?
No.
Okay. But did you, at the time in the army, did you start to feel something was wrong, or that some other perspective of the situation?
Not at all. We were really brainwashed. You know, we saw those ruins in the 50s, in the 60s, everywhere. We never asked, what are those ruins? Where are the owners of those ruins? What happened to them? Why don't they come back? The word Nakba, I think I heard first time when I was 20 or 25. I don't remember when, but as a child, I never heard about the Nakba. We were told nothing about the Palestinians. We just were told that they all ran away and that they all wanted to kill us. That's the only thing we were told, and we had no interest to know.
So when did you start feeling something was wrong?
When I started to travel to the occupied territories as a journalist. After working 4 years with Shimon Peres, I was already a little bit in the left, but in the very Zionist left. Only when I came to Haaretz in the year of 82 and I started to travel to the occupied territories a few years later, only then I started to realize that something goes wrong.
So today you're one of the most prominent and strongest domestic critics of the state of Israel. So is this something very rare, or do you know more people who share your opinion on the situation?
Less and less, I must tell you. And after the 7th of October, 2023, the last 7th of October, I feel more lonely than ever before because even few of my last friends changed their views after the 7th of October. They thought and they are still thinking that after what the Palestinians had done or what Hamas had done to Israelis in the south, we have the right to do whatever we want. I don't agree to this. Obviously, I didn't change my mind, but I'm very lonely now. There are very few who share those views, but it's by far smaller than ever.
So, how is it to be in Tel Aviv days like this with your stance? And what kind of challenges do you face? Is it safe for you to be in Tel Aviv?
So, in a very interesting way, it is safer than in former wars in Gaza. 2014, I had bodyguards. I couldn't really go out to the streets. And this time, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe Israel is getting more matured. But in the street today, someone screamed at me at the street, but just insults. But nothing special. It's more in the social media. And there it's quite unpleasant, but also I'm really not the story and I can't complain. I have still my full freedom and I feel safe and I cannot. They stopped my participation in Israeli TV. I used to participate in a panel every week. And ever since the war started, I said a few things and then they said we cannot take it anymore. We will re-invite you after the war, which I'm not sure will happen. But except of this, I cannot complain.
Okay, so because I read that you received death threats in the past, so you didn't have anything like this now.
Yes, but I don't take them seriously.
Okay, that's good. If you don't mind me asking, but your surroundings, friends and family, do they share your views, or is that also put you in a situation?
They are and they are. They are and they are. My partner, she's a Swedish novelist. In the last 15 years, we met in Gaza 16 years ago. She's also going through a certain change. And some of my friends changed their views. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can imagine how it must be for you and other Israelis and people with Jewish background around the world who's going through some kind of personal identity jihad, if you will.
Yes.
To let go of so many years of Zionist influence from Israeli society since childhood, and at the same time breaking up with an environment, sometimes even friends and family. And as also it was the case for some of our previous guests on this program, with Jewish backgrounds. And I can only say I have my deeply respect for that. In my eyes, you are true champions, and it shows a pure heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've spoken before about dehumanization of the Palestinian people being deeply ingrained in the Israeli people. Can you say something more about that, and what do you mean exactly by that? Yeah.
Look, the dehumanization is the core of everything. Without dehumanization, you cannot control another people in such a brutal way as Israel does for so many years. Because if they are human beings like us, there is a problem. We cannot treat them like this. I don't think that the Israelis are more sadist than any other people or more evil than any other people. And if you see those daily crimes, really daily, every hour, and you perceive the other as a human being like you, you cannot handle with it from the moral point of view, not for a long time. So you can always say it's self-defense and they want to kill me, I have to take some measures, but it will not last for so long. The real way to maintain such an attitude is by convincing yourself that they are not human beings like you. And then everything is much easier. The Palestinians don't love their children like we love our children. They don't care about their life like we do care about their life. They were born to kill. And they have different morality, different values. They are much more cruel than us, and all kinds of things which all get together to one conclusion, and this is that they are not human beings like us. Therefore, they also don't deserve, by the way, the same rights like us, because they are not human beings like us. So the dehumanization is the core of everything, because I believe that nothing will be solved as long as Israelis will continue to see the Palestinians as non-human beings, or for sure not as human beings equal to them, equal in their rights and equal in their, way of thinking, way of living, feelings, dreamings, everything. We are very far from this. The biggest agent to create this dehumanization is the Israeli media, obviously, which is dehumanizing the Palestinians for decades, in the way it covers the occupation, in the way it doesn't cover the occupation, and in the way they handle the whole conflict. It is a shame, but nothing compares to what happened in this war now, the war of the 7th of October, because what you get now is the worst of the worst from the point of view of the media. The media does not cover Gaza at all, not the sufferers of Gaza, not the victims of Gaza, not the destruction of Gaza. We don't see anything, not in the mainstream TV, not in the mainstream newspapers, nothing. Any Danish average citizen in Odense saw more from Gaza than average Israeli who lives 1 hour away from Gaza. I must remind you, viewers and listeners, that Gaza is 1 hour away from Tel Aviv, 1 and 15 minutes. That's all. It's really in the backyard. So this dehumanization conducted by the media, namely not showing them as victims, not showing their sacrifice, not showing their pains, not showing their suffer, the starvation, the living in tents. We have such a winter now. Nobody speaks about how does it look like to be in a tent now in Rafah, and so many other examples. But it's not new. It's just intense now. The Israeli media created this atmosphere of the Palestinian as a dehumanized creature, not as a human being.
Yeah, because of course, I came to Palestine many times myself, and I also met with Israelis and many times sitting and talking with them, and I felt the same, that they really don't know what's happening right on the other side, and they are told not to go because the narrative is that they will be in life danger if they go and visit the West Bank or Gaza. But I feel also this dehumanization is just something that's pointed towards Palestinians. You also feel it in Israel towards African workers, for example, and even inside the Israeli population itself. There's a difference between Arab Jews and Ethiopian Jews and white Jews. So there is some racism that is deeply grounded in Israel.
Yeah, but it's different when it comes to the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. This is racism like I guess you have in your country as well, toward foreigners, toward those who are different, toward different colors. We see racism now all over Europe, and Israel is part of it, no doubt. But when it comes to the Palestinians, it's much deeper than this. Because first of all, it goes together also with demonization. On one hand, dehumanization, but also demonization. Every Palestinian is a terrorist. Every Palestinian is Hamas. Every Palestinian is a walking danger. We should be very careful not to get even to talk to them because they are very dangerous. This is uncomparable to the other, which you rightly mentioned, the attitude toward the asylum seekers, the attitude toward anyone who is not Israeli and not Jewish. But with the Palestinians, it gets much more depth, because here we are afraid of every Palestinian, and we don't perceive him as a human being.
The late Hayo Meyer, he was a German-born Holocaust survivor and a political activist. He compared the situation today with the Nazis' concept of blood and soil, with empathized in their right to conquer and kill, and he believed that this was also something that is implemented in the Zionist mentality, that whoever and however you pave the way for conquest, it doesn't matter who you kill on the way. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't. I mean, I knew him, and he was really a great man. But I wouldn't get into any comparison with the Nazis, not because it sounds bad, but because it's counterproductive. Any comparison with the Nazis will necessarily bring us to the conclusion that Israel and the Jews in Israel are much better than the Nazis. If they are so much better, so there is no problem. So what do we complain at all? Let's put the Nazis aside because it's a very unique phenomena. Israel never planned to build concentration camps we may have, but not extermination, not systematic extermination. I wouldn't go there. I would talk about Israel as a colonialist country with colonialist methods. I wouldn't go so far like the Nazis. Yes, it has a lot of racist aspects. It has the dehumanization, the demonization, but I wouldn't go so far because A, it's not true, and B, it's counterproductive.
Okay. So, to jump a little bit, now the Israeli government, something that happened recently, the Israeli government, they're great at they're experts at shifting focus. Now everyone is talking about the 12 suspect terrorists from UNRWA. And the focus of the genocide has changed. The Israeli the allies of Israel, they accelerate the genocide by freezing the UNRWA funds. So far, most of the Israeli government and army, what they have said during the genocide since the 7th of October, all their claims have been debunked, even by Israeli media. So why should we believe in this story with the 12 people from UNRWA connected to Hamas?
This is one of the biggest shameful events in this war, and the shame is mainly the West, because it became a snowball, and all the Western countries, not all, because Norway, for example, said no. I don't know where Denmark stays, but Norway said no, and someone should appreciate Norway. Sweden said half yes and half no. They didn't cut all the budget. But by and large, really, including progressive countries like New Zealand and others, I cannot believe what happened here. Really, it is such a shame. Instead of putting sanctions on Israel, the world is putting sanctions on UNRWA. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. There are 30,000 people working for UNRWA. They are the only or the main agency that really saves the lives of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees, not only in Gaza and not only in Palestine, also in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan. And now this is the enemy. Yes, they were found. Israel claims there were 12 employees of UNRWA who took part one way or the other in the events on the 7th of October. Horrible. They should be punished. They should be fired. They should be brought to justice, everything. But to punish UNRWA, if this is not a collective punishment, what is a collective punishment? It's really shameful.
And here in Denmark also, they're still hesitant. There's a big pressure on the government to stop the funding on UNRWA as well. So it seems like many countries in the West, they're waiting for an excuse to punish the Palestinians even more. As a Palestinian, in my eyes, it seems like they just want to kill us, no matter what, no matter where we live, because many Palestinians will be infected by this as well, like you said, also in Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, in the refugee camps there. And it seems like, as a Palestinian, if they even had the chance to get rid of us here in Denmark, if they could, they would. This is the feeling we have here as Palestinians.
Why do they bother to talk about the two-state solution and to donate quite a lot of money to the Palestinians throughout the years? Finally, they donated a lot of money to the Palestinians throughout the years. I don't have an explanation. It's for you to answer why Denmark is taking part or hesitating in such a shameful act. I talked to UNRWA people and to others and to some diplomats, and I got the feeling that nobody planned it to happen like this, and somehow it became like a snowball, and now nobody wants it to happen, and everybody is trying to pull out, but it seems maybe too late because Israel is obviously taking advantage of it. But even from Israel's point of view, if there will be no UNRWA, who is going to take care of 2.3 million people in Gaza? Israel will take care. Israel will finance their health services and their education and the street cleanings. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, but many Israelis, also in government, what they are advocating for is actually to get rid of all the Palestinians. So it seems they want to create a situation so bad for them that they're forced to leave in the end, that Gaza becomes unlivable.
Most of them know that it is impossible. At least now it is impossible. Maybe one day, but not now. Nobody thinks that now it is possible. So what do they think? I mean, and for sure the Europeans understand that this is impossible. So what do they think exactly should happen? Very, very strange and very depressing.
But it's also, we see now these days there's a escalation of war in the region. You have the United States and the United Kingdom bombing various targets in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. And it's like their answer to everything is more violence, more death. So what do you think is going to happen now in the region?
We don't know. I hope it will stop in a certain stage because otherwise it can turn into a regional war and God forbid maybe also to a world war. The international community has to put an end to it. And the international community can put an end to it by putting a massive pressure on Israel to put an end to it. Enough is enough. 27,000 people, 12,000 children, enough is enough.
You can also maybe say that this what's happening in Gaza now, the genocide happening there, is a continuation of the hundreds of thousands of people that have been killed for the last 25 years in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. And this is just more death to the Muslim population. So it seems like what Israel is doing in Gaza now it's a continuation what Europe and Russia and America have done in the Middle East for the last 25 years anyway.
Yes, but still it is different because here we are dealing with a people without rights, a people without citizenship. Who else doesn't have citizenship? What other people in the world doesn't have any citizenship of any state? The last poorest Afghani has an Afghani passport. Any Syrian has a Syrian passport. What do the Palestinians have? So it is also about self-determination and freedom and justice. It's a different case than the others. And I think in many ways it is a unique case and should not be part of all the things you mentioned, which are also part of a major problem. But the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not only part of this. It has also very, very strong local characteristics.
The United States and Europe, are they treating Israel like they're treating the Palestinians and everyone else in the region with the same contempt? I mean, do the United States or Europe, do they care for the common Israeli man on the street? Are they just using Israel as a tool to control the region? Or is it the wealthy Zionist lobby in the United States that controls the United States foreign policy? Or is it a combination? A mud pie of wicked and corrupt games and almost impossible to figure out what's going on?
I think you answered it by yourself. I mean, by the end of the day, people in Europe should ask themselves, are they ready to continue with this situation? Because finally it will reach out also Europe. It was always like this, that the Palestinian problem had influence on the entire global discourse and global stability. And as long as this is not solved, many other conflicts will not be solved. But it's really about the international community to do something about it. Israel will not solve it. Forget about it. It should come from the outside.
There's rumors of a ceasefire. Is it? You think it's realistic? It will happen soon?
Yes, I think there will be a pause, a ceasefire, but I'm not sure it will be the end of the war. And above all, we have still the problem in the north, which is not solved. So it's very explosive. Right now, it seems that we are getting into an agreement, but I'm afraid that it's very fragile, and I don't know how long will it last and where will it end.
Yeah, it seems very hopeless, this situation, and because we're in a situation where right now we're just seeing this horrible situation the Palestinians are under right now, and also a destruction of culture and heritage. And it seems like even if this government that is there now, even if they had the chance, they would also expel even the Palestinians living inside of Israel. And I'm thinking, who's going to stop them if it comes to that?
Yeah, but again, I refer you to the international community. It must come from there. Like the international community put an end to the apartheid system in South Africa, now it's the second challenge.
Everyone in the West, they are completely silent about the army's aggressions, also even in the West Bank. And there's no Hamas on the West Bank, at least not controlling the West Bank. So the whole narrative about this is about a war towards Hamas, it doesn't make any sense, because we don't hear any condemnation from the Western media or the Western governments about what's happening in the West Bank, which is just as cruel. Of course, it's less bloodshed, but in a way, just as cruel what's happening in Gaza, because there's no law there at all, and what people are going through there now is unbelievable. What do you think? What is the reason for that? That nobody says
Let
anything?
me tell you that condemnation are totally irrelevant. Israel learned to live with the condemnation. We don't need more condemnation. We need actions. If the government of Denmark will condemn Israel for killing almost 400 Palestinians killed in the West Bank ever since the war started, Israel couldn't care less about it. It's about taking measures, not condemning.
What about the 30 captives that was found the other day, executed and tied up? Was that in was that in the Israeli media at all?
Again, the Israeli media doesn't cover the occupation for many years and doesn't cover it now. I go every week. Today I was in the West Bank covering a story of a 5-year-old child who was killed. Nobody wrote about it.
No.
A girl of 5 was shot at her back and nobody wrote about it. Nobody mentioned it. I will do it, but it's part of the betray of the Israeli media.
And speaking of the media, the other day that there was a crew from CNN, staff workers, who came out and talking about how they've been censored about the Palestinian perspective in CNN. And the coverage, it amounts to journalistic malpractice. The staff, they are forced to promote the Israeli propaganda. Whatever news that has to come about Israel, it has to be accepted by the bureau in Jerusalem. Could this be a change now in what's happening in the United States media? This is the first time you hear this, I believe, that people from a big commercial station like CNN coming out and daring to stand up against the coverage of the situation down there.
I hope yes, but about CNN, I must tell you, I'm watching CNN, and they are so much better than the Israeli media. I don't agree that they are dictated by the Zionists what to say and what not to say. CNN is doing quite a fair job in this war. The fact is that they invited me so many times this time. No war before they ever invited me. I was so many times this time in CNN. And I wouldn't blame CNN or other Western media. I think in Western media, you see quite a lot of what's going on in Gaza. The problem is Israeli media, And the problem is obviously the governments, not the public opinion. Public opinion in Europe, most of it knows the truth. The problem is that the Israeli public opinion does not know the truth and doesn't want to know the truth. But I won't go so far because really any European, average European who watches CNN or local networks can know and can see what's going on in Gaza.
Yeah, but still, I believe I understand what you're saying. That I can imagine compared to Israeli media, it's completely different than the European media. But still, most of the commercial media, Denmark and the rest of Europe, United States, they still take a clear stand. They call it a war. They don't call it a genocide. They call it, and they're very focused on Hamas. It's the same narrative we are being told the whole time. I see also a small change coming because they cannot run away from covering what's happening. Also, I believe maybe it's also even that it's also something about money, because more and more people, they don't want to watch the media anymore because they go to social media where they can watch what's actually going on. So they have to think about their viewers and their listeners. They cannot just give them the same propaganda. They have to give them something else as well, I believe.
Okay. In Israel, it's different. In Israel, the people don't want to know, and therefore they don't know.
No. But there is some change there, isn't there? There are some people that are starting to go to the streets, even people who, even Israelis calling it a genocide, demonstrating in the street.
There is protest, but not against the war. The protest is for releasing the hostages. The protest is against the government. Those who call it genocide or those who want to stop the war at once are very, very few.
Before you said that boycotting Israel is something you support, the boycott of Israel, and economic boycotts and cultural boycotts, academic boycotts. I read that this was your point of view. So do you also support the Palestinians' right to resist through armed struggle?
Yes, absolutely. I always thought that boycott is a very legitimate tool. Israel is now using it to every country that criticizes Israel. Israelis boycott now anything coming from Turkey because Turkey dared to criticize Israel. It's a very, very legitimate tool, and I think it can be also very effective because I always give the example of South Africa. It was very effective in South Africa because in South Africa, finally, it was the business community which came to the government and say, we cannot go on like this. Yes, there was obviously the resistance of the Black community and the struggle and the violent struggle. It was the political boycott, it was the sport boycott, but finally it was also the economical boycott, which put an end to apartheid in South Africa. As long as Israelis are not taking accountable for the occupation and not paying any price for it, there will be no change. And therefore, boycotting is a legitimate and moral tool, no doubt about it, in my view.
And the armed struggle against the Israeli occupation, is it just the armed struggle?
Yeah, the armed struggle should have limits. I don't think that exploding buses in Tel Aviv serve the Palestinians. I don't think that killing innocent people is moral in both sides. I never say that I'm in favor of going for a violent war against Israel. A, because it's not moral. B, because it's not effective. Israel will always be stronger. But as far as I cannot stand the Israeli violence toward the Palestinians, I would like to see the same. You think that I can support what happened on the 7th in the south of Israel? I went there on the 9th. I was there 2 days later. It was a massacre. It was horrible. I don't support it. I might understand the roots, the reasons, but to support it by all means not. And by the way, it also doesn't serve the Palestinians. But first of all, from the moral point of view, what they have done in the South is immoral. I'm sorry to say so, but what I saw killing children, adults, hostages from all kinds, people who didn't harm the Palestinians by nothing, only being Israelis. I totally understand the need to resist by force also to the occupation. By the way, the international law allows resistance against the occupier, but it should have limits. And I think the Palestinians this time crossed some limits.
Bringing me back to what I mentioned before, that Israelis and Palestinians are put in a situation where these things happen because nobody forced peace in the country. So bad things will continue to happen on both sides.
Absolutely. They shouldn't force peace, they should force justice. Peace will be the bonus. First, we have to get some kind of justice for the Palestinian people. It will never be a total justice, but some kind of justice to the Palestinians after all those years. Once there will be some justice, I believe there will be also peace. But it's about, first of all, creating some kind of justice for the Palestinians. They deserve it.
Was the creation of Israel, was it a mistake?
No, it wasn't a mistake because the mistake was the way it was done. At this stage, when my parents, coming back to the beginning of our conversation, when my father tried to save his lives away from Europe, he had nowhere to go. He tried so many places, everywhere, every place they were denied and refused. And his only rescue place was finally Palestine. He wasn't a Zionist, but this was his rescue place. And I think that after the Holocaust, it was inevitable that Jews will try to create a Jewish state, which was fine if it would have been created in a just way. The problem was that it was not created on just basis. The basis was not just, the basis was colonialist.
I mean, because if you look at history, all the times that the Jews were persecuted and thrown out of Europe, is many of those times it was the Muslim world that took the Jews in.
Right.
And I mean, what if that would have happened instead? That you have made an agreement with these new Arab states to take each of them take an amount of Jews, because again the Jews were persecuted in Europe. Again, it was the crimes of Europe that forced the Jews to leave Europe. So looking back, I know there's something called destiny, but looking back, you could have wished that it would have been maybe a similar situation, that the Arab countries would have accepted the Jews instead of it being forced down on the Arabs.
Absolutely.
The way it did.
It was forced up to them, and it was really made in a very aggressive way. It was not a fair way, because it was their land. Nobody can deny that this was their land. It's not a people without a land came to a land without people. No, this was a lie. A people without a land came to a land with a people. And I believe that in a certain stage, it could have worked out that two peoples will live on the same land in one condition: equality and justice. But from the beginning, the Zionism did not look at the Palestinians as equal human beings. And here we also come back to the core of everything, which is the dehumanization of the Palestinians. It started then. It started much before the State of Israel.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I read that you once supported the two-state solution, but today you support a one-state solution.
Absolutely. I think the two-state solution is a very logical solution. It gives an answer to the desire of the Palestinians to have their own state, and they deserve it. It gives the answer also to the Jews to have their own state. You have one piece of land, two peoples. Let's divide the land and go for two states, independent, equal, not one demilitarized and one militarized like no other country in the world, but two equal states. The problem is that in the occupied territories, which are only 22% of Palestine, in those territories which are Palestinians, there are living 700,000 Jewish settlers. Nobody can evacuate them anymore, unfortunately. And if they will not be evacuated, you don't have a viable Palestinian state. And continuing to talk about the two-state solution just plays to the hand of the occupation. Because all the EU, the United States, the PA, they all know that there is no room for a Palestinian state. And therefore, we have to draw the conclusion and not to continue to talk about the two-state solution. There is another solution, which right now sounds far-fetched, but this is a real just solution with a vision, namely a democracy between the river and the sea. It is a restart of everything. It's end of Zionism. It's end of a Jewish state and a Palestinian state. It's the beginning of new reality. Then there is no problem of the right of return because it will be one state and there will be an immigration policy like any other state in the world. And I guess right now it sounds far-fetched, but we don't have another solution. Don't forget that we are living in one state for 56 years now. The only problem is that it's not a democracy. If we turn this state from an apartheid state to democracy, we are having a just solution. We have to start it somewhere. I don't think it will be easy. I don't think it will be short, but we have to start it. Continue to talking about the two-state solution, in my view, is just closing our eyes to reality.
Yeah, but what happened after the 7th of October? More and more people are talking about a one state openly now. Before it felt like it was only whispered, but even the Palestinian activism now, the young generation, nobody's talking about two states anymore. There's only one. It seems like everybody with some reason, some sense, they can see the only thing to do is a one state solution.
Yes, the only problem is that when in Israel they speak about a one state, they mean a Jewish state from the river to the sea. And when the Palestinians are talking now about a Palestinian state, about one state from the river to the sea, they talk about a Palestinian state. Neither nor is a solution. Neither a Palestinian state nor a Jewish state. The solution is a democratic state between the river and the sea.
The Palestinians, I know, what they're talking about also a one democratic state. So, of course, at the end of the day, it depends on who has the majority of voters. And so
it's very easy. Today, the two peoples are really half and half. We have around 7.5 million Palestinians, 7.5 million Jews between the river and the sea. It's very simple. It will not be Palestinian, it will not be Jewish, it will be a democracy. Like Denmark is not a Danish country, a Danish state, it is a democratic state. This is what should be here. It sounds easy, but it's very, very complicated because it's really creating an entire revolutionary new reality. But we have to start it.
So what do we call this state?
That's the last worry. You can call it Israel-Palestine. You can create like Bosnia-Herzegovina. It will be Israel-Palestine. What's wrong in this? Or any other name. The name is the last worry.
But it will be a beginning of peace, at least when we come to this point.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Once there was an Israeli former Secretary General. He once said that you were a Trojan horse inside the state of Israel. I read that somewhere.
Yes.
And I hope he's right, because that you being a Trojan horse for the Palestinian freedom struggle and for the end of the genocide. So I mean, a Trojan horse for peace and equality for all, for Jews, Christian, and Muslim. It's not a bad thing to be.
I'm very proud of what I'm doing, no matter what they say about me. I never hesitated to express my views, and no matter what they think about me. Yeah, most of the Israelis think that I'm not only wrong, but I'm also a traitor. I think that the settlers are the real traitors because they did everything possible to prevent the two-state solution, and therefore things are so complicated now. But you know, history will judge us.
Yes. Yeah, and yes, again, I have a big respect for what you're doing. It cannot be easy, and I'm sure you already know. But even though you feel as a stranger in your own country right now, you have a lot of friends, a lot of sympathy, a lot of people who support you around the world, including myself and the people I know. So I'm not going to take much more of your time. I just want to say thank you for being with us, and
Thank you.
And our little show about Palestine. And it's been a great pleasure, and I hope we can talk again another day. So, Assalamu alaikum from Copenhagen.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Judaism, as I learned it, is highly, highly ethical. And so you cannot connect Zionism with highly ethical. You can only connect the words aggressive, oppressive, stealing, robbing with Zionism, but not highly ethical. Zionism and Judaism are contrary to each other because Judaism is universal and humane, and Zionism is exactly the opposite. It is very narrow, very nationalistic, racist, colonialist, and all this. There is no national Judaism. There is Zionism and there is Judaism, and they are completely different.